Hello there, it's 5 after the hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to take a moment to welcome everybody who showed up today. I see a couple familiar faces that I think this will now be your third time that you have done something with me this week. The Stop, Drop, and Roll, the Collective Unburdening, and then now this class. So go you if that is your story. So it's great to see you all here. We're going to spend the next hour together. And I just wanted to take a quick look in the chat here. Looks like California, Prague, Melbourne, Northern California to be specific, Sydney, Australia, wonderful. And it looks like some pretty typical questions because we're a little bit smaller group. So we limit this group to 25 people signing up. Normally we get about a fourth of the people that will actually attend the meeting. So we were hoping to have no more than 10, and we have 7 of you. So that's a perfect number to be able to go through this in a way that is not quite one-on-one, but can answer some specific questions for those of you who are using the app. So there definitely will be time for that. For those of you that are familiar with Sentur, of like, hey, I had this thing happen. How can I use Sentur in this specific use case? Or what does all of that look like? So we'll have time to go over that in our time today. So just a quick review of how we will be spending the next hour. Number one, it's recorded so that people who are not able to attend this are going to be able to access it on our YouTube channel later. And number two, we'll do the beginning part with the IFS overview because it's helpful to understand the basics of IFS and then see how Sentur is built on top of that, right? And then we'll have that time for the group discussion and the case example. So we'll start with IFS, then we'll talk about Sentur, and then go into specifics about that. So yay, welcome everyone. So for those of you that have join me for the last 2, you can turn your ears off for the next 20 seconds because you've already heard the spiel. This will now be your third time. But for those of you that did not join us or who are not familiar with myself, my name is Sarah Hui, and I am the co-founder of Sentur. And I'm a trauma survivor, a mom, a wife, an Enneagram 3. So for those of you who are into the Enneagram stuff, I'm an Enneagram 3, and I am a certified IFS therapist as well as a certified IFS consultant. I had the great privilege of being able to get trained before everybody and their mother got involved with IFS, and now the trainings are full. So I've been doing this for about, 9 years now, presented at conferences and all of that. So know that you are in good hands with regards to Sentur, not only from a clinical perspective, but from a technical perspective as well. That's a little bit about me. So let's dive into IFS basics. I didn't see any specific questions about IFS. It's more about the app. So we'll maybe go through this a little bit faster, but for any of you that need me to slow down or have questions about any of these 4 building blocks of IFS, feel free to unmute yourself and say, well, hold up, I need a little bit of assistance here. So I will start moving through these and then we'll hop into the stuff about Sentur. So internal family systems, I always say, is the kind of the most complicated but most intuitive way of understanding ourselves as human beings that I have ever come across. So I've done lots of training in lots of different methodologies, spiritualities, lots of different things. In IFS, when you try and explain it, it gets a little bit wonky. But when you're actually doing it, it's like, oh, how did I not ever see myself as this way before? So for me, IFS is broken down into 4 specific building blocks. The first one being at the bottom here, which is multiplicity. So multiplicity is the framework that IFS is based off of, being that we do not have a mono mind. We are multiple, made up of self and parts. And we'll go into this a little bit more in the upcoming slides, but we are not mono mind. We are made up of self energy and parts. And through that lens of multiplicity, that is how we approach the trailheads in our life. So trailheads is something that is not talked about a ton in the IFS community. It's one of the number 1 questions we get asked all the time in Sentur is like, what is this thing called a trailhead? I'm so confused, right? So we'll talk about what trailheads are and why we emphasize their importance in Sentur specifically. But trailheads are just simply, I'm going to admit one more person into the training here. Trailheads are just simply the place that you start your journey. It's the thing that you struggle with. Another common word for them is trigger. So we'll talk about these 4 basic things: the basics of multiplicity, self-energy, parts, and trailheads. So as I said, multiplicity is one of the things that it's the founding. If you are not able to take on the lens of multiplicity, the rest of IFS is not going to make any sense to you or be applicable to you. So multiplicity is the idea that we are playing football, not tennis, that we are a system and not singular, that we are not a mono mind, that we have multiple sub-personalities in this self-energy. And you may be thinking, well, who cares? Why do we care about multiplicity? What's the deal with that being so important? And the reason it's so important is that depending on the lens that you view yourself through, either multiple or mono will give you the lens through which you see your suffering and therefore your route to success based on that viewpoint. So for example, if I am struggling with anxiety, and I believe that if I'm in the mono mind category, right, the opposite of multiplicity, I look at my anxiety as I am struggling with my anxiety. I'm struggling with my anxiety. I need to figure out a way to fix it. I need to figure out a way to teach myself how to be calm. There's something in me that doesn't know how to do this thing calm that I'm trying to figure out doing. So I either boost the calm or I have to figure out how to decrease my anxiety. And when you come from a mono mind perspective, I am my anxiety. There is nothing else. I am the anxiety. I am anxious, right? And you'll hear that said that way often, in the general public. So when we look at something like that, the path forward through suffering with the mono mind is I'm either deficit in something that I need to figure out how to get more of, or I need to fix something in me, or it just is a very different way forward than through the lens of multiplicity. Through the lens of multiplicity, struggling with anxiety sounds a little bit something like this. I have a part of me that feels anxiety when I have to drive my car. And this part of me picked up this burden when it was 6 years old because its life was out of control. And now when I drive a car, it kind of mimics the same thing, right? In that, we are seeing the experience of multiplicity because not only is there the experience of anxiety, there is somebody, an adult, that's there to witness that anxiety. So in that, the anxiety, we would see something like anxiety through the lens of multiplicity, not as the fact that you don't know how to be calm. We look at what gets in the way of the calm that is already there with you. So the really sophisticated way that we talk about this in the IFS community is that it's a constraint release model versus a deficit model. So if we look at the experience of anxiety through constraint and release, there is a part of you that's holding anxiety that is blocking your natural core self, which at its core is calm. So if you're feeling that anxiety, the anxiety is forward. And when we work through IFS to help build relationship and help liberate that part from the anxious energy it's holding, your natural calm will come forward. And I have seen so many clients come into my office and go, oh my gosh, it was weird. I just was calm. Like there wasn't this thing. And it's not to say that being able to get unblended is not, and working with unburdening is not challenging, but that core self, who you are, already is calm. So that's why I make a big deal about this, because that understanding and taking that multiplicity mindset on is the basis for understanding everything else. So questions about that before we go on? Perfect. All right. Let's talk about self. So self in the sports analogy would be the coach or the leader of the system. You can also use an analogy of an orchestra, right? So you have the conductor and you have all of the pieces in the orchestra that are there with you. The self is the leader or the coach of the system. And the idea is that we're looking to have collaboration, not isolation of just self energy. One of the other things about self that is really liberating to individuals who have struggled their entire life, come from complex trauma, have just known a lot of intensity in their system, is that self energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Now, it will go into exile, and that's way more advanced than what we're going to get into in this system overview here. But that self energy is in every single one of us that's on this call and is at the core of who you are. And it is whole and intact, cannot be created nor destroyed. And it's in every one. Now, that one can get a little wonky for people because they're like, really, even this really awful person? It's in everyone. It's at the core of all of us. In that way. So one of the things that I hear sometimes for people that have been in the IFS community a little bit longer, which it sounds like you all have, from the questions you're asking, been in the IFS community a little bit longer. And one of the misconceptions about IFS is that being in self is the goal of IFS. And that's actually not the goal of IFS in any way, shape, or form. Being self-led is the goal of IFS. So people say, well, I just am going to, reach this state of calm and I'll just always be in this nirvana, sitting on top of my meditation mountain. And it's like, no, that's not the point. We actually are looking to have inner collaboration between unburdened parts and your self energy. So it's the mixture of the two and the collaboration of the two. Just like in order to experience a symphony, you need the conductor as well as all of the instruments. I'm not going to go pay money to watch a conductor up on the stage just do its thing. You need all of the different instruments in the symphony as well as the conductor to make that magic happen. So that's one thing that in the work that I do with my clients, that I hear all the time, is this misconception that, well, I'm just going to be in self and we will eliminate the parts. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Eliminate the parts. That is not what we're going for. Questions about self? Ooh, you guys are good. Okay. Let's talk about parts. So this is the second building block of multiplicity. Multiplicity is the foundation through which we look through everything. Self and parts are what make up multiplicity. Parts are the players on our team. Our idea is to liberate, not eliminate. So oftentimes in the very beginning, it can feel like just complete chaos when you start this work. And most people will say, well, if I could just get my inner critic to be quiet, everything would be fine. If I could just get my inner critic to shut up and leave my system, everything would be fine. And that's not what we're looking for. We actually don't want to get rid of any of the parts in your system. We're looking to liberate them and help bring them onto your team and integrate them into the overall experience. So if we use the symphony metaphor again, everybody is playing their own sheet of music as loud as they very well may please. And there's no conductor on the scene when we first start talking about healing, especially early on in the journey of IFS. So when we're talking about parts, our idea is to be able to get everybody playing the same sheet of music and then playing the instrument that they know how to play best instead of this really extreme role that they've had to take on in your system. So there's a lot more. We could do a whole presentation about parts. There's different types of parts. There's protectors, there's exiles, they're using even different types of protectors. There's firefighters and managers and all sorts of things. And they do amazing things. But for the basics, all you need to know is self, parts. And our idea is we don't want to get rid of anybody. Dick's new book, Dick Schwartz, who is the creator of All Parts, or creator of IFS, he has a new book out called All Parts Welcome, right? Or No Bad Parts, excuse me, No Bad Parts. Same thing about this is there's no bad parts. We're interested in getting curious toward them and liberating them, not eliminating them from the system. Questions about that? Cool. Okay, let me move this guy over here a little bit. All right. Trailheads. Okay, trailheads, AKA your triggers. This is where you begin your journey. and it is essential for progress and motivation. So a trailhead could be a multitude of different things. It could be a relationship that you have, it could be a role that you have, it could be work, it could be sex, it could be addictions, it could be money, it could be a body sensation, it could be grief, it could be overwhelm, it could be. It's the thing that whatever the topic is that you are struggling, or the area that you want to make sure that you are thriving in the most in your world. And it's really important that we stay consistently connected with the awareness of what shows up for us in these trailheads, because for most of us, the journey of self-transformation is going to be a longer journey, right? It's going to be probably a lifelong journey for many of us. So with that being said, when you are traveling and making those steps in any direction, if you're not capturing the trail that you are walking, it's very easy to feel discouraged about what you're doing, right? So if I walk from one side of the country to the other, but I don't see what I'm doing, it's going to feel like, even if I may be making progress, but I don't know where I am, I'm not going to know that I'm actually making progress towards my goal. And it can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm starting right back at square one, when in reality, I've made huge progress, but because I haven't been tracking it, I don't really know what's showing up, right? So we are really big on building that muscle of self-awareness in these specific trailheads, because ultimately that's what we all want, right? When we talk about, why are people doing this, right? They want to feel better in their relationships. They want to end their addiction. They want to be better with money. They want to have better self-esteem. They want to be a better parent. Okay, well, if you're not tracking those things, it's going to be really hard to stay motivated and see the progress that you're making with regards to that. So just starting where you're at, you will start to see that. And we'll talk about how Sentur uses those specific things in the way that we have constructed the app. So, okay. Let's see. Before we get onto Sentur, I'm just going to look at the chat here real quick. Barbara said, seeing parts through the lens of neurobiology as neural networks made it obvious to me that I don't want to eliminate any part. Yeah, we probably wouldn't want to get rid of any part of our brain, right? I'm board certified in neurofeedback as well, so I have all sorts of fascination about neural networks and parts and how they hijack that and da-da-da-da-da. So very cool. Chris said, in my therapy, I'm beginning to see how some parts that are not helpful at the moment could really be powerful allies in the future. Yes, Chris, that is exactly it. That is 100% it. And that's where, this might come off wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's where we can get really, really dangerous in a good way with our work, because then we can really welcome with curiosity anybody that shows up, even the really challenging parts with, hey, I know that you're here. And here's one thing I will also say to you, Chris, is oftentimes I have found, not always, but oftentimes I have found the bigger the energy when they are in their burdened role, the bigger the blessing when they are in their unburdened role. So if this firefighter shows up with like all of this wild energy and addiction, let's say, right? Once that part unburdens, like it doesn't ever just give a gift that's that big. It gives these like huge, amazing gifts that show up. So yes, absolutely. Go you, Chris. Anybody want to say anything else about IFS in general before we move into Sentur in specific? Chat or unmute yourself, doesn't really matter to me. Cool. All right. So let's talk about Sentur. So Sentur is a digital platform offering comprehensive, accessible IFS tools and support for your journey of self-transformation. We got started about 4 years ago. We've been on the App Store 4.5 years ago. We've been on the App Store for about 2.5 years. And we have been on the Google Play Store, I think, for about a year. What is the name / what does Sentur mean? So actually, that's a really great question, Denise. So my co-founder, Ferris Weiss, is actually originally from Jordan. He is a software engineer and serial software entrepreneur by trade, had his life transformed by doing IFS therapy, left his job and said, we have to bring technology and IFS therapy to offer people tools like this all over the world. So we really have a passion for using technology to break down barriers to accessibility. So he's from Jordan. He now lives in Bulgaria. My whole team is in Bulgaria. I'm the only lonely one in the United States. So everybody cool lives in Bulgaria, and I'm over here in the United States, just rocking myself. But Sentur is the Bulgarian spelling of our English word CENTER. And when we think about IFS, oftentimes there's something. When people describe IFS and getting to that place, they just say, gosh, I just feel so much more centered. I'm just so much more centered. I feel like I can access the core of who I am. I can be centered in nature. So that word kept coming up over and over and over. So it's our homage to our Bulgarian roots and support, and our co-founder and our whole team that's over there. And yes, people in other languages are always like Sentur. I don't understand. What does Sentur mean? Yeah, Sentur. Yeah. So it's just center in Bulgarian, but spelled a little bit differently in English. Okay, so that's about us. We have a lot of fun together. All right, so going through multiplicity. So some of the basics in Sentur. Sentur is a very, very comprehensive app, which means that there's a lot of different things in here that are going to take you some time to get to know and get used to. So I would encourage you to reach out through the app if you have other questions. We now have the I need support. So if you look at this little guy right here, this I need support guy, this little question mark right here will give you access directly to the tech team and me with other questions that you might have of, well, how do we do this? And how does this work? So know that that is there for you. So with the lens of multiplicity, you'll notice here on the bottom, we have the journal feature down here. So this is a really important feature of Sentur that allows you to start to build this muscle of self-awareness through this lens of multiplicity. So in the journaling feature, we have the ability for you to do a general self-reflection, just like you would type it into your notes app or, you know, something on your phone. And then we have the ability for you to tag the trailheads and the parts that are coming up so that you can start to categorize your self-reflections based off of this view of multiplicity. So let me pull up my app here real quickly and I will show you all what that looks like live and in color. Hold on just a second here. Hold on. All right. So sometimes this works and sometimes it's persnickety. So we will see what happens with this. All right. There we go. Can y'all see my screen or my phone that I'm moving here? Yes. Okay, great. So when we look at this, let me go back over here and move this over to the side here. So when we look at this, underneath the journal section here, you'll notice that red arrow that I'm pushing. You can do all sorts of things with this. So my favorite thing, because I actually hate to type on a phone, my favorite thing is to use the voice dictation. So in my journaling or my self-reflection, I'll be doing this on a walk. I'll be doing this not while I'm driving because that wouldn't be safe, but it wouldn't be the first time I've done this while I'm driving, while I'm getting ready in the morning, or if I do have that moment to like sit and do my self-reflection, you know, with my cup of tea in the morning or something like that. And I use the voice dictation to just capture everything that's going on or whatever is coming up for me. And the whole thing is captured in this journal. And generally speaking, when I'm doing a journal entry, I'm talking about multiple different things. I could start off with my relationship with my husband and then go into work stress and then be talking about how I didn't feel very good later in the day and so on and so on. So at that point, I can then say, okay, well, when I look at this, here are the different trailheads that I noticed that came up in this particular journaling experience. So this experience of self-reflection through the lens of multiplicity is really, really important. You can also attach parts to this. These are all of my parts. This is my personal account. So let's just say these were the parts that I noticed that came up with that. I can click save, and all of that self-reflection will then be saved into the part personality profile as well as the trailhead profile. So it's a way of starting to categorize, organize your self-reflection through the lens of multiplicity. So that is journaling. I'm not going to save that. No. Okay, so that's journaling. So let's talk about meditations. So you will see here, we have all sorts of meditations that can be done, and every single one of these meditations is all IFS inspired, and they are all done through the lens of multiplicity. So if you're talking about struggling with stress, we're going to look at stress through the lens of multiplicity, right? We're going to look at it of what parts of you are coming up. How can they give you some space to be able to have your natural self energy come forward that's a little bit more calm, things like that. Addiction, same thing. Anniversary loss, all of these are done through the lens of multiplicity, as well as the exercises. I'll go through mapping in just a second. Then the next piece, and this is the most widely used piece in our app, is the red lifesaver at the top up here, the I need support workflow. This little sucker is going to save you more times than one when it comes to getting triggered in a situation. So this is the one that I use the most often. This is the one that our users use most often. When you click that button and you say, yes, I'm feeling stuck or I'm feeling triggered, it is going to take you through an entire process, step by step, helping you to start to get more access to calm in that chaos through the lens of multiplicity. So we don't have time to go through everything right now. If we have time at the end, I'll show you the particulars of it, but play around with it. It is so incredibly helpful because I, like you, when I get triggered, I'm in the washing machine just as much as anybody else. And it's so helpful to just go, I don't have to think about what's going on when I'm triggered. I can just follow the next thing that somebody is telling me to do, and it will walk me through all of those things. So that basis of multiplicity is what everything is built off of. Any support, any self-reflection, any awareness, any step forward is all based around that lens of multiplicity. So questions about those particular areas: journaling, meditations, I need support. I'm going to say mapping for parts. Any questions about those?
Yes, Sarah. Yeah. If I wanted to export my journal stuff, if I to have an offline version of it or use it somewhere else, can I do that?
So we have that as one of our projects right now. So right now we could export something that would just be this like gobbledygook CSV file that is just like not helpful for anyone. What we're working on is getting something that's really can actually be used as a tool for people to be able to use their journaling. So we're going to be incorporating some AI to start to be able to say, look, this has been your month in review. Here were all your journal entries. Here were all the parts that you connected with. And here's some of the insights that we were able to pull from this experience. And then you can take that and print that out and have that for you in a tangible manner. So we don't have anything right now because what we have is not really helpful for people. But we are working on it. That is one of the things that we have straight up on our list. So great question. Laura?
Yeah, when I saw the meditations, I immediately went into Insight Timer and wanted to check whether the other Genarimus Miera and others. And then I also, the chatbot, I just thought, well, this looks like IFS Guide, what they are doing. But of course, it may be the same or similar, but this is all in one place. So
yep.
Understand that I even had problems to remember the Insight Timer. You know how it's called? So it took me sort of 3 minutes to find it on my iPhone. And I just realized that I used to listen to it to Dick and Mariel Pastor and just really vigorously 3 years ago, and then I completely forgot.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that looks useful.
Yeah, and you make a really great point, Laura, because like Jenna Ray Meersma, these meditations that she has are also on Insight Timer. So we're not trying to be a content we're not trying to block content. We are the tool that helps people do their own self-transformation through using the content. So for example, when you do Jenna's meditation, you could do this on Insight Timer, but you're going to say start. It's the same meditation, right? That would be on Insight Timer.
Hello, my friend, and welcome.
Things in the background, blah, blah, blah. So you'll listen to the meditation. And then when you say next step, this is where the magic happens, where you can say, yeah, I do want to capture this. And oh, by the way, there's your self-reflection again. That's going to say, I did the meditation about this, and oh, that part came up and that part came up. So if I want to attach this part, right, to that, I can say, great, this went there. And then when I go to that part, in that part's profile, it'll say, oh, remember when you thought about me when I was listening to this particular meditation here? Or, oh, by the way, when you were triggered the other day, I also showed up there. So it not only does it give you the content, it gives you the tool to be able to see what comes up inside you and puts it all in your own journey, regardless of where you come in. So whether you come in through a meditation or you come in through, a post IFS session with your therapist, or, something like that, it takes that and puts it into your journey specifically. So it's a really important distinction. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, so I have an additional question. So I, because many people, many clients ask about apps and so I was looking into this rather for myself, because in my experience, I have quite a few clients who are unable to do the IFS work themselves.
Yep.
As well as many other things, and so they need to be in the relational container with another human being who would make it real or validate. So how much do a client need to know about IFS, or do you have any experience with, because I know about this app for a few years, I think when you started.
Yep.
And is it more for practitioners or is it more for clients? And what's the level of IFS knowledge that a client needs to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great question. So they don't need to know anything. We have an IFS and Sentur Essentials that goes through essentially what we're talking about here of what's multiplicity, what's part, what's self, what's that type of thing. And for my clients, a lot of my clients cannot do this work on their own outside of my sessions. That does not prevent them from using the I'm struggling when they get triggered, right? To be able to start to go, oh yeah, here's a meditation to help me get more self-energy. Oh yeah, I can see that these are my parts and not who I am. And when we start talking about parts here, for them to be able to start to track and map their parts that they get from session with you is really important. So this is an app for the general public, for clients, for that type of a thing, but therapists use it all the time for their clients to be able to stay connected to their system and feel more confident and clear about the work to be done in between sessions. Because I always like to make the joke that, if somebody's privileged enough to have access to an IFS therapist, there are still almost 458 hours a month that they are not in session with us, right? So what the hell are they doing for those 458 hours, right? And can we give them something to just, even if it's just the journaling, right? For them to make some observations and, notice some different things that are coming up, that is enough. Certainly not unburdening, certainly probably maybe even a little unblending, but it's definitely for clients of every level, not just, now, if you weren't ever going to use IFS with them, they're going to be like, why would we do that? But So hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to go into the chat here real quick. So Denise, but there's nothing to stop us from taking a pic and putting that in Evernote. Absolutely. So I have two things that I'm asking for very, very much so from our development team. One is the ability to export, because I'm a tangible person. I want to print my part personality profiles out. I want to tape them on walls. I'm a tangible person. So I want the export, like what Chris talked about. And I also want the merge feature. So I want to be able to merge my parts, because oftentimes I found that it's not that I have so many different parts. It's actually that, oh, these are the same parts. So it doesn't prevent you. In fact, I would encourage you to do that if you'd like to do that. The thing that we're running across, though, and we're working on getting a web platform for this, is that, as you'll see, like in my parts map, if I were to take a picture of this, it's not really super helpful because everything is so zoomed in. But I can get, I can get zoomed into, these would be my managers here, right? So you can snap a picture of this, or you can, we do have the ability for it to be, it'll generate a document that will take a picture of just that screen and export it. So we're working hard to try and make that export feature really awesome, because mapping would be so awesome. Barbara's question, does mapping give the ability to coordinate? Yep, organize the collection of entries about a part or trailhead. Is there a description of how somewhere? So you'll see on here, we do have the ability to cluster. So mapping is one of the things that we're really passionate about here. I can go into more detail if we have time at the end, how we end up doing clusters. But yes, you can create your own clusters. You can filter them. So one of my favorite things about the map is I can filter it by burdened or unburdened. So if I say, is it burdened? No, this will show me a map of all of my unburdened systems. So these are my guides, for those of you that are familiar with that, or my legacy blessings that I've worked with. And then these are my unburdened exiles, right? These are my gifts that come forward that that is something that I use. So you can do it burdened, unburdened. You can do it by trailhead, right? So if I only want to see the parts of me that come up around my codependency, okay, great. I will do that. Apply that filter. Maybe not that one. Maybe I don't have parts tagged there, but you can filter them through those trailheads. That's what you were talking about. So does that answer Denise, Barbara, and Laura's questions? You guys feel good about that? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's move forward here. We have about 20 minutes left. Self-energy. So let's talk about self-energy here. Let me move this guy out of the way. So self-energy is really, really important for the overall system, right? It's the leader, it's what we're trying to gain access to in general. So in mapping and tracking the self-energy, it's really important that people are able to start to see that they can have a bad day, but it doesn't turn into a bad year. So when we look at this, self-energy is, you can track it from the front here. We track the individual amounts of the 8 C's here. They're just a quick slider button, right? And I'm not going to save it because I don't want to screw up my overall thing. But when you go to this and you look at your self-energy assessment, you can see, okay, well, I may be on a different trajectory here. Overall, here's what this is. Here's my average time, right? So if I can see my self-energy falling, I might be able to look and say, oh, well, I haven't spent much time in the app. Maybe I'm not really spending a whole lot of time connecting with myself. Maybe there's an insight in the fact that if I'm spending time doing this, overall, I feel better. Things like that. So self-energy is really important. There's assessments. There's also meditations, specific meditations in here. Like this one is literally called Access More Self-Energy, all sorts of things in here to track that access to self-energy. So it'll let you look at your all-time self-energy levels, your history of all of them. And yeah, that's self-energy. Questions about self? No? Okay. Let's talk about parts. Yay. Okay. So you can't see this, but I'll show you. That's what that looks like. Let's talk about parts. So we have a very sophisticated part personality profile. that allows you to set goals of building awareness and developing relationship with parts through guided check-ins or just time check-ins. And we really can walk the entire journey from a part being like, I don't even know, are you just a body sensation, all the way up through the unburdening of the part and integration into your life as a resource overall. So in that, for the parts, we can look at the parts as we have been looking at here on a map, or we can look at them as a list of different parts. But to add a new part, you're just going to click on that guy and you will see that up here, you can have all the information, or you can just put, I'm just going to put new part name. That'll be just the new part that we use here. The profile, unsure. So like what Laura was talking about, some of your clients are not even going to know if the part is burdened, or they're not going to care. They just know that it makes them want to throw up, and that's all they know. Okay, that's fine. If they're not sure yet and they're not sure the burdens and anything, and all you get is inner critic tells me I am, dog crap, and that's it, all you get, great, they can enter that in. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. But in creating a new part, you can use any images you want. We're actually getting ready to do a collaboration with some artists that have created visuals for people around different types of common parts, inner critics, firefighters, things like that. In the system. So images, you can also use emojis if that's your jam. My parts hate that, but if that's your jam, you can use emojis, colors, and then all the characteristics. So the age that this part is, how old does it think I am, right? If this part is 2, maybe it assumes I'm 7 when really I'm almost 40, or things like that. The type of part is it is protector, exile, that type of a thing. Observations, and you can go through each one of these. The acquired burden, so what burden is it carrying? How did it come to do that? How does it hold it in its body? And this is something that can be done over months. It does not need to be done all at once. But as this starts to come out, like what Laura was talking about with clients, as this information starts to come out over months or even years, you can start to update these different fields as this part shares its personality with you. The other thing that I love about it is not only can you have a personality profile pic, but you can also have images. So parts show their personality to me through images a lot, different images I see, or pictures or whatever. So you can add images to it as well, different notes. So once you create that part, you can do all sorts of things. No, I don't want to say that. You can do all sorts of things to look at, is it connected to self? Because in the beginning, sometimes parts are not connected to self, right? Most often that's the case. How much does that part trust self, or how much do you feel compassion or curiosity to that part? These are all things that will go through when you are working with that part personality profile. The attributes, the history. So this is like, it'll say, when you created the part. This one is a newer one for me. Maybe I can put, I'll show this one. This one has a bigger history. So it'll show every update, every check-in, every observation of this part. And the really cool thing, so as you see here, let me find one. So as you see here, this is a really cool one. So when you look at this, where it says like, be busy, tension, I have to take care of it. This shows like, oh, she doesn't believe that anymore. She actually unburdened some of these things in her system. So when you're talking about being able to have these histories, it's so important to be able to see this work that's done, because as you're journeying, it can just feel like, oh, I'm in the slog of it and this is so hard. It's like running a marathon. If they didn't ever tell you how far you'd gone, you're like, well, all I know is that this is hard. And it's like, oh, you're on mile 13. You've done a great job, right? This is all really important to stay connected. Likewise, as you are checking in, you can set goals to check in. So this is a big one after a session with a client or your own IFS session. On a part, almost 100% of the time, I don't want to say all the time, but 9 out of 10 times, that part, when you ask it what it needs, it's going to say, I need more time from you. I want you to be more connected with me. I want you to be more available for me. Okay, Great. So in the next couple of weeks, could we think about maybe 4 or 5 times that we would connect? Okay, awesome. Then you can put it in here. This is what I want to do. Update that connection goal. And then when you say, yeah, I do want to check in with this part. Great, let's check in. You can do timer. I'm going to set the timer, ask me for 5 minutes, or I don't want to set the timer. Sometimes I'll be on a walk and I will just be kind of checking in with this part as I go. And I want to capture what I noticed afterwards or on a run or, something like that. So no timer, or you can do guided and it will give you a guided check-in to check in with that part. So even if you're like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, checking in with parts, you don't need to. It will walk you through it. So before I get into the unburdened, do you have any questions about the part personality profile? These part personality profiles here, how you can get all the connections, all the attributes, the history, anything about that? No? Okay. So Laura said, can you show how you add guides and legacies? So right now I just add them as a new part. And then I have them in the clusters. So you'll see here, I have my, so in my unburdened part, so Ruth is actually a guide. And I have her as an unburdened part, but then I have them clustered on my map. Let's see here, my map. So I have them clustered in my guides legacy here, on my map. So that's really helpful. And as you get into that work, using your unburdened parts can be a really huge support in unblending too, when you're struggling with other parts. Can you use the app for yourself and multiple clients? No. So I use the app just for myself. We don't have a portal right now for therapists or professionals to be able to use this with their clients. We're considering it, but it's definitely on the table, but there's some things to consider on a larger perspective that we're just thinking about. But it's just for yourself personally. But as your clients are doing this, right, and they're noticing things and they have pictures that they'll bring in, or, hey, I noticed this, or oftentimes what I notice with my clients that use the app is they come in and they're just a little bit more unblended and a little bit more clear about, yeah, this part of me just kept showing up and I really want to start there, versus what can happen is the full 45-minute check-in for a session. And then the last 20 minutes they want to do, they're able to actually get to a part and work with the part. So it kind of helps with that. We don't have it, but we are interested in it, Laura. We are my co-founder, the gentleman I was talking about before, man, we have to stop ourselves. It's what could we do the ring, a Fitbit, a Garmin, how do you connect it to that? And there's a whole thing about that of because I have done actually full QEEGs with people while I'm doing IFS sessions with them. And when somebody says they're in self energy, it doesn't always correlate to what we would consider to be regulated in the system, right? Courage is not always the most comfortable feeling. And so it gets into a whole thing, but you're thinking how we're thinking, Laura. It's very fun to think about how those things could feed each other back. Yeah, it's fun to think about that stuff. Let's talk quickly about the parts unburdened journey. So let's say I've been working with this caretaker. I've worked with it for 10 years and I am ready to unburden it. That's dramatic, but it unburdened into session, or I'm ready to unburden it. So in this, I am going to click unburdened. And this part is going to say, okay, great. Now we're going to help you get to know the personality of this part in an unburdened state. So once you say fill out unburdened bio, it will take you through a whole program of getting to know this part unburdened. And then it will automatically enroll you in Michelle Glass's daily post unburdening meditation. So she has a meditation, a very specific meditation that is for that post unburdened 30-day journey to get that part, get those neural pathways firing in this unburdened state. Once that part is done with that post unburdened 30 days, and Dick talks about this all the time in his work, how important the unburdened post unburdening phase is to stay connected with this part, because if you are able to do that and integrate it, you're less likely to pick up other burdens moving forward. You're able to lean into the gifts that are there. It's just for most of us, we get to this place where it's like, phew, that part unburdened. Next, right? And it's like, no. We really want you to be connected with this part. So being with that, we have to connect. We want to connect with those other unburdened parts. After that part is done with the 30 days post unburdening maintenance program, it will roll into her daily parts meditation practice, which is her meditation that she has developed to help you stay connected with every single part of you that's unburdened. And it will auto rotate through the parts that are in your unburdened, she has them in a basket. That's how she used to do it, but in that unburdened category, and show you one every day to make sure you're staying connected with that unburdened internal system that you have worked so hard to be able to access. So that is a click of a button. I'm not being dramatic when I say you literally can click burden to unburden, and it will unroll that part and do everything that it needs to have done in that unburdened journey. So that's, we talk about programs, that's what we're talking about there. I'm going to scream through real quickly. Whoopsie doopsies. Let's talk about trailheads real quickly. Super simple in the app. I already talked to you about why it's important. So trailheads, it'll pull up in the I need support. So it'll say, what are you struggling with right now? The meditations, addiction, anniversary loss, betrayal, grief. There's all sorts of specific meditations for trailheads. The trailhead tracking. So going through this and noticing this was one of my most powerful, very unexpected things that I had happen to me early on in my work with Sentur. So early on in my work, I was tracking my relationship with my husband as one of my trailheads, as many of us have, you know, partners or spouses. And I got really triggered, and I was like, bleh. Fine, I'll use this stupid app that I created. So I go in, I'm all triggered. I use the I need support. And I happen to go to the history of the trailhead just to see, like, I was just so blended. And literally the entry right before the one that I was so triggered in was like, I'm just noticing a lot of spaciousness and gratitude and like deep connection that I had never thought was possible. And that unblended me quicker than anything has ever unblended me. And I've done sessions with Dick one-on-one. Like, it unblended me quicker than anything, because it showed me that what is happening right now is not what happens always. And so that history of tracking your trailheads is so important to be able to help with unblending, be able to help with insight, to be able to help with all sorts of different things that can bring some clarity and confidence as you and, you know, the people you work with are working through those really tough things. Let's see here. Okay. Is there a 30-day program in the app? A 30-day program like getting to know IFS, or a 30-day program? Tracy, if you have more to share about that, I'd love to hear about that. We have the IFS and Sentur Basics class that runs through, you know, this a little bit more. So the IFS masterclass, absolutely. So we are trying to see. Oh, are you there, Tracy?
Yep, I'm here. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for that question. I think you might have answered it when you said if you go and click on unburden, that it does it for you.
Yes, absolutely. It does it. So the 30-day program, it will automatically do it for you. So if you have a part and you switch that profile to unburdened, it will say, congratulations, let's fill out the part profile. Would you like to enroll it in the daily post unburdening meditation program? And you say yes, it will enroll you in that 30-day program and that part, and it'll show up on your home screen with all the things that you're supposed to be doing to, well, that your system has asked you to do to stay connected with it in multiple different ways.
Wow, thank you. I've really been underutilizing this app, and this talk has really showed that. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, that's one of the challenges, is that it's so sophisticated and it can do so much that sometimes it can feel a little bit like, I don't know, so I'm just gonna like not do it, or there's so much in there, and I get it. That's why we're doing these classes.
Yeah.
So Kathy said, I would love to see something like an IFS masterclass connected or merged with the Sentur app. So we are getting there. So the IFS and Sentur Basics class is what we are really working on for like people who are like, I don't know what a trailhead is, right? And we also have a vision of working somebody through an entire, like, it actually, ours is the full vision is like a 90-day class that would allow you to do it on your own, and work through a lot of the things like trailheads and the particulars of parts and, you know, all sorts of things. So yes, love, love, love. It is 5 o'clock at the top of the hour.
Can I ask? Can
Yes,
I
go
ask
ahead.
a quick question? Sorry, it's
Yes.
Denise. So this sounds really great, and I am really interested in doing it. My only thing is I have a part that knows just how cerebral I am, and I'm a little afraid I can get like lost. My head will get lost in like, an app, and I will get disembodied with it. So
Yes.
just wondering what your thoughts are around that.
100%, 100%. I share that same experience, actually myself. And one of the things that I have noticed about that is it's not so much a disembodied, it can get, you run the risk of trying to figure everything out instead of being with what is, right? Of like,
Yeah.
I want to like fill out this part personality profile and get it all full today because that's going to make me feel really good. And versus like going, wait a second, the only thing that this part has shared with me is that it's fog. So I'm going to put in the app fog. So that's all I know about it right now. So with every tool, right, you run the like the pluses and minuses. And one of the things about this one is you invite managers to come forward with something like this. Likewise, without something like this, firefighters can kind of take over and they can kind of be like, well, maybe we'll do this thing, maybe we won't, you know, it can kind of just, so it's a balance, but it's a very good question and something that I have had to do a lot of my own work around, because that is definitely not what we want to have happen. But then if you take it away and go, well, we don't want managers to be inside it. It's like, well, but there's so much good that comes from being able to know that like, it's all right here. I don't have to figure it all out in a way. It's right here for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's all grist for the mill. It's a new trailhead to look at that cerebral part.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely. My figure it out one. She's in there. She's a strong one.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So where I would say for all of you right now is number one, if you haven't used the I'm struggling, use the I'm struggling, that red life preserver at the top. Try that out. Encourage your clients to try that out. If nothing else, that is a great place to start. If they are like, I don't know what IFS is, start with the IFS and Sentur Basics class. And then I would start, if you don't have any trailheads in there, I know everybody gets all like parts when we're talking about IFS, but trailheads are so important because it's the place that we're all looking to measure our progress and figure out if we're on the right track with. So I would say start tracking some of your trailheads. And then if you have parts, add them in there. And like what we were talking about, you don't have to get it all filled out in one time. It's more of like a general, you know, what's showing up for you, and start to build that inner relationship with those check-ins or just in your daily walks or the daily centering practice. And then if you have parts that you have unburdened, put them in the unburdened profile and start to build that integration using the daily parts meditation practice. So those would be next steps. Let's see here. Oh, you all are at the end of the journey, so you already know about this. But I wanted to thank you all. I sincerely appreciate you all showing up with your questions and your enthusiasm about heart rate variability and can we get a patient portal for this? And we hear you, the exporting, all that good stuff is awesome. So I want to say thanks for all of you being here. And if you have more questions, the app has that little question mark thing at the top. So if you have more questions, hop on there and it can get directed to me. It can get directed to our technical support team. And for clients that you have that want to try this out, free 14 days, or anybody else that you know, and then they can come to one of these IFS and Sentur Basics classes and get to know a little bit more information. So thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Ditto. Thank you.